Welcome, everyone. Good morning. We are going to get started here. I want to welcome you to our webinar this morning and say a big special thank you to Jill Griffin for being here with us today, for volunteering her time and offering up her expertise to really enlighten us. Jill Griffin is a mindful career coach and strategist serving employees, entrepreneurs, and brands. For over 20 years, Jill has had a successful career driving impact, inspiration, and culture within startups and renowned global organizations such as Hilton Hotels, GE, Citibank, Coca-Cola, Microsoft, Atlantic Records, Martha Stewart, Virgin America, and at Publix Group. These experiences have provided her with unique expertise and perspective across growth, strategy, operations, and people management. Just as her career began to take off, she was involved in an accident that unfortunately led to head trauma, forcing her to rethink and rework her career and her life. This injury forced her to live in purpose rather than in reaction. Ultimately, it forced Jill to consider how much of an impact her thoughts played in creating her results. Throughout her career, she continually saw employees who are struggling to succeed in matrixed corporate environments. The common thread was the individual's mindset, compounded with the velocity of business, which resulted in people who went from loving to hating their jobs in a matter of hours. Jill's passion for employee wellness was her catalyst for full-time career coaching, and today she leverages mindset tools alongside positive psychology and cognitive behavior shifts to assist her clients in gaining the professional results that they want in their careers. Jill, welcome. We're so excited to have you virtually here with us today.
Thank you so much. It is really great to be here. And I'm just going to pop a question into the chat. So guys, if you want to start, and gals, if you want to start thinking about that, that'll be really great as we kick off here. So, when I first was asked to join this group and think about what I wanted to talk about, I knew that I wanted to talk about failure, because failure to me has been something that I struggled with. It would get me all riled up and I wouldn't necessarily know how to process it. And then as my career trajectory continued, I started to feel that at times my life was either a signing bonus or a severance package. And that's what happens often when you work in technology and marketing, right? It's very high risk, high reward. But until I learned how to process failure, it really kept me afraid. It started to pull back on my innovation, my strategy. My title at times was to be the head of innovation in different groups and the head of strategy. So the last thing I need is to be afraid to take risk and to let previous failures pull me back. So 3 things I want us to touch on today is 1, how do we rethink failure, right? And 2, how do you take action in spite of failure? And then lastly, 3, how do you evaluate your progress? So I popped 2 questions in the chat, but for anyone who may be watching this at a later date, think about do you have an automatic negative response that comes up for you in your body when you think about failure, whether it's the concept of failure or actually a previous failure? And then the second question I would say is what do you feel in your body when you think about failure? It looks like some people are popping into the chat right now. Yes, not having enough confidence, feelings of concern, embarrassment, totally get you, right? Completely agree. Understand those: sadness, upset, anxiety. Anxiety tends to be my go-to favorite emotion, is to drop into anxiety. Anybody else? Panic fills my body. Yes, because it is a chemical response. And we're going to get into that, Laura. That's awesome. Anybody else? Okay, so feel free to drop it in. Sean, always a great attitude. Failure is a blessing in disguise. Love it. Hannah, I love that failure is part of your success, but companies aren't understanding of that. that is a great lead up for what we're going to talk about, Hannah, right? Because we don't have a culture of failure. Most of us learned in school that if you didn't do it right, you failed. And the more you failed in school, the less you succeeded. But the flip here is that the more you fail in life, the more you succeed because you get curious. What happened? What didn't work? What can I do differently? And you build up a tolerance for risk or a risk tolerance. I'm trying to flip slides. Okay, so everything you do in life is because of how you want to feel or a feeling you want to avoid. It doesn't ever fit, right? I mean, it doesn't ever not fit. Everything you do is you take action, whether you realize it or not. It often happens subconsciously, but you're doing that because of how you want to feel or because of how you don't want to feel, right? Just think about what we just talked about, our feelings of failure. If you're feeling disappointed, sad, upset, anxious, panic, well, those aren't necessarily fun feelings, so we don't want to feel them. So we stay away from it and then we don't take risks. But if you don't work through the failure and the corresponding feelings, we don't progress. We stay stagnant, we stay small, and we don't move forward. So fear stops our growth. And I know you probably all know this intellectually, but I really want us to take a deeper look at it and say that when we are less fearful, we move forward, we take risks, we find other ways to hack our growth. And then again, when we have the ability to experience any feeling and get through to it to the other side, we increase our self-confidence. There's a myth out there that self-confidence only comes from previously doing, right? So I've done that task. I used to be a marketing manager. Therefore, I know how to be a marketing manager. I know how to do that. I feel confident in my job. Yes, but it's also knowing that I have that expertise. I know how to do it again. But if I mess up or I fail, I can get through the feeling and the other side. And then suddenly, if I'm not panicked about the feelings that might come up, I increase my self-confidence because I know I can experience it. It's definitely, sometimes it can be a little heady, but when you understand that it really is based on, positive psychology and working through those emotions, you get to move through with new feelings. So guess what? The worst thing that can happen to you today is a feeling. And I love saying that because it's true. And again, everything in life is about our thoughts that create our feelings, that create our results. So if a feeling happens to you today and it's not a good one, then that's the worst thing that can happen to you today. So this concept of think, feel, act, our thoughts create our feelings and our feelings create our actions. And then our thoughts come from what motivates us. And the brain really hasn't changed much since we were living in caves, right? This concept of the motivational triad, our brains are motivated to seek pleasure, avoid pain, and conserve energy. So seek pleasure, food, procreation, avoid pain, fire, lions, right? Conserve energy. When you put your hands on a keyboard, you instantly know how to type because your brain already remembered that muscle movement, but it's also your thoughts, right? So the thoughts and beliefs that you have, a thought is a sentence in your head, and a belief is a thought you just keep thinking. So when you keep thinking, you're conserving energy based on your old beliefs. And that's why at times it can be hard for us to change our belief because our brain has a negative bias. It's going to go to the thoughts that we've already had, even if they're negatives. And we call this sort of the default operating system in our brain. Here's how it plays out. Let's say you want to update your resume and you're thinking like, I got to do this, but I don't know what to do. Avoid pain. Not really feeling like it today. Conserve energy. But I really need to do this. Seeking pleasure, right? So you're in that motivational triad. But then I don't know what to do. I don't know what to write. Again, all about the avoiding of the pain, all about the conserving of energy. So I'm just going to sit down and watch Netflix or spend hours on TikTok, right? Again, conserving energy. And then, you know what, I'm not going to do this. I'm just going to go out with my friends instead, seeking pleasure, right? So that's how it plays out for you in this example. So when you understand that that's how your default operating system of your brain plays out, I offer you the opportunity to notice what is happening. One, just notice it and laugh at yourself, right? Be like, oh, I know I need to update my resume because I want to apply for that job. But here I am in the mind twist, the mind war with myself. I'm in this thought era loop of, I don't want to do this. Name the feeling you're feeling. So procrastination, feels heavy, I feel confused. Name the feeling you're feeling. If, again, going back to this building your resume example. And then find another feeling or thought that's going to get you into action. So what could I be thinking otherwise? I know I need to get this resume updated. Could I be coming from determination or feeling focused, feeling inspired? What motivates me? Could I be curious? Could I be in what's possible, right? And when you make that shift, you then are creating from that goal, right? Remember I said everything is about that feeling that you're creating. So that feeling creates your action and your results. And if you're coming from a feeling of curious, maybe I could get this done. You know what? Maybe I'll spend 2 hours on it today and 2 hours on it tomorrow. Now you're motivated in a different way and you're taking different action, and then you can get back to your goal.
Jill, I want to pop in here for a
Please.
sec. I think we often think about getting from point A to point B in terms of physical locations or actual tasks, but I love how you're bringing in getting in from point A to point B, really from an emotional sense, and focusing on how our feelings can help drive that goal of really completing what we're interested in doing.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's a really great point. Like, again, one of the things that I teach my clients in private practice is how to conjure up the feelings you want by looking at previous experiences, right? So there was an opportunity when I worked on a large technology account to have a complete Times Square, New York City takeover. And basically what that meant is every single billboard and banner in Times Square was going to default to my client. And there was a team of about 50 of us making it happen, negotiating with the city, negotiating with who currently owned that media space, negotiating with street vendors, and just making this whole experience come together so that at like, I think it was at midnight we flipped the switch, that at midnight everything moved to my client's brand. And it was like this thrill of, we did a never been done before in New York City. The teamwork, the collaboration, the excitement, this feeling of leadership in the industry, the love of our brand, all of those feelings. I think about that experience and like that ridiculously talented team that I got to work amongst. And then I take that feeling and I go create, because then all of a sudden I'm coming at my work, my creation from a feeling of positivity, excitement, collaboration, inspired, motivating. And that's how you use feelings as fuel. And that's how you change your beliefs. And that's how you change your career. It's really, really powerful. So I'm going to move on. Again, as a reminder, we move through failure. We have to try new things. And when we try new things, they ultimately aren't going to work. And we have to go through what's not going to work in order to get what will work. It's like, in order to have what you don't have, you have to do what you're not going to do. And some of it's not going to work. And that's how you're going to continue to be in failure. But I'd offer that as you're going through that, you have to find the way to keep moving, and don't confuse consumption for action, because they're completely different. So a lot of times clients will come to me and say that they're reading, they're watching, they're studying, they're searching Google for best cover letters and notes, but they're not taking action. Why? Because they're afraid of failure. So action means creation, experimentation, and failure. And it's better to create and fail versus consume and stay safe. And then you're probably going to say, well, Jill, if I already know that I'm going to fail, then why in the world would I do it? Because the alternative is failing. You'd fail anyway if you don't do it. So don't fail in advance. Take the action. And don't lie to yourself. Because there's the concept of an escape fail. And this is a fail when we're going to fail. So I don't really want to do this. We numb out with too much screen time, food, alcohol. We give up. We check out. We have total inaction. You have chosen to fail ahead of time. On the flip side, you could have an honest fail, which the strategist Dan Sullivan talks about you can take an action and fail and still have a strategic byproduct, and there's a win in that. So an honest fail is you're going after the job, you apply for the job, you don't get the job. Okay, fine, that sucks, I get it. But what did you get along the way? Well, you updated your resume, you practiced your interviewing skills, you network with people, you expanded your network, you probably brushed up your LinkedIn profile. Even though you had a fail against your ultimate goals, it was an honest fail because at the end of the day, you had a strategic byproduct from the actions you took. So, moving from failure and how you move forward. Well, first, you set a goal. And I'm going to tell you, there's probably a lot of things you want to achieve. And I'm going to tell you to practice ruthless constraint. And for right now, pick one thing you want to do between now and I would encourage you the end of the year. So pick something you want to do. I'm going to update my website. I'm going to, update the resume. I'm going to find a new job. I'm going to apply internally for that promotion. I'm going to start a side hustle, whatever it is that you want to do, pick one thing and set a date. Then I want you to think about how will you measure it? How will you know, and for yourself, how can you prove that you achieved? Right? So you might say, I want to feel better and have less anxiety. That's a very worthy goal. You get to decide what's your own measurement stick to prove that you achieved that goal, right? So your brain can be a jerk and your brain could be a big jerk. So watch out for it. This goes back to the motivational triad because your brain is going to freak out at some point and tell you that this is not going to happen. This is a bad idea. You should stay safe. Don't fail. It doesn't feel good. And your brain is probably going to tell you to scale back your goal, be more realistic and reasonable. Or worse, you're going to ask other people for their opinions, which I highly advise you not, because they're also going to probably tell you to scale back and be reasonable. Or my biggest is they're going to be totally indifferent. They're just going to be like, yeah, whatever, go after your goal, right? So be really strategic when you talk about your goal because it's your baby and you want it to grow. And like I said here, it's like, remember that motivational triad, conserving energy and avoid pain. That's where your brain can be a jerk to you. It's going to tell you to stay small so that you don't have discomfort and pain and you'll conserve energy. So you need to understand what's required to hit your goal. I often say, is there somebody that has this goal, somebody who's gone through a recent circumstance like this, or someone who you know who's achieved it? What qualities does that person have? What do you need to develop? What do you need to be thinking about? Tenacity, focus, determination, optimism. What do you need to develop so that you can go after your goal? Also, how does that person think differently? When I first heard my mentor wanted to create a $200 million company, I was like, wait, what? And then I started realizing that she's thinking in a way that's totally different than someone that's staying safe. So, how does that person think differently? And what is it that you can aspire to emulate? So, you got your goal. Now you need to get into action. So I would suggest that you brainstorm about 25 things that you can do to achieve this goal. And then I'm going to tell you, get it all out and write down all your objections as to why it's not going to happen. Bring it. It's not going to happen. I don't know what to do. I'm confused. Get it out because that is where you then start to build the strategy. Your brain is going to, again, motivational triad, avoid pain, conserve energy. These are the reasons this isn't going to happen. It's COVID, this market, I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Get it all out. And then after each one of your little baby dramas, I want you to write all the strategies you can think of to remove that obstacle and tackle your goal. Reminding yourself along the way, who do you need to become in order to achieve this goal? And then you evaluate. So often when we succeed, we tend to move quickly. Maybe we go on to celebration. We don't really, even if we've ultimately succeeded, we don't necessarily look at the little small micro failures that we may have had along the way. So I offer you again that when we fail or succeed, it's so important to get curious and evaluate what worked. And spend most of your time here because, again, our brains are jerks to ourselves and we don't want to be beating ourselves up. Spend the time in what worked. Then look at what didn't work, right? You may have math, you may have data, you may just have feelings that came up for you along the way that weren't working for you, and you want to acknowledge that. And then lastly, what would you do differently? If you were now knowing what worked and what didn't work, moving forward, what would you do differently? And I want to leave you with that setting goals isn't just about the goal, it's who you get to become and unbecome along the way. And that's really where the power is to move yourself through failure. And then if you want to learn more, see what's possible, I encourage you to reach out. Um, Give a consultation. It's a free consultation. We'll figure out what's possible within your career and ultimately decide if we're the right fit to work together. But either way, I hope that this talk was beneficial to you and that you're able to take away some thoughts around failure.
Jill, thank you so much. It was so fantastic to learn from you. I want to open up to questions at this time. If any of our attendees want to, you can raise your hand and I can unmute you. You can type your question in the chat box, whatever you prefer. To do some personal reflection on my own goals and my own trajectory, something that definitely stood with me throughout the presentation was that I need to not only focus on my tangible goal, whether that is fixing my resume or applying to 10 new jobs. It's very much also thinking about the place that I need to find myself in, the confidence I need to develop, the ability to say, if this doesn't work out, it's going to be okay and I'm going to emerge stronger. And I thank you so much for pointing those things out and just recognizing that that's all normal and that's all important. And it's almost like not even failure if it doesn't work out because there's so much good that comes out of it as well. So
Yeah.
thank you so much, Jill.
No, thank you for pointing that out because I often say like there is no failure unless you quit. Like if you stop, then there's failure. But you get to keep pivoting along the way. And the only thing between your goal and achieving it are days on the calendar. It's the only thing. You just keep at it until you keep fine tuning, and eventually achieve your goal. And listen, it might look slightly different than what you thought it was going to be, but embracing what's possible, I think kind of elevates us into a realm of success that we hadn't previously thought about.
Totally. And I think Sean's comment in the chat totally echoes that idea that we almost feel better about ourselves once we do overcome that failure. And, Sean's additional 2 cents here was that that's when people have the confidence, have the ability to start businesses because they want to strive a little bit higher, get a little bit more out of what they have going for them right now in their life. So thank you, Sean. Appreciate
Yes,
it.
that's great.
Any other questions or comments before we wrap up? Jill, is there anything else you would like to leave our audience with? Maybe something about how COVID has impacted the mindset or how COVID has exacerbated some of the challenges that we need to overcome?
Yeah, that is an excellent question. So, um, we've been calling it COVID brain. And what I mean by that is things have always been serious, people. Like, this is serious time. There is no doubt. And as a New Yorker, um, my city got hit hard. My community got hit hard. But things have always been serious. And what I mean by that is that there's always been plagues and wars and Vikings and things that were happening in our world. And now we're concentrating on it. I think the impact of social media is also making everything like sort of fanning the flames even more. So as you can work through and allow yourself to feel the feelings around it, if you're scared, if you're if you're feeling despair, like really allow yourself to feel those feelings. Get professional help if you need to, through a qualified therapist if you need to work through some of the deeper, like, if there's any post-traumatic stress from the experience. But I just offer you, like, when things are the way they are right now, there's an enormous opportunity for innovation and possibility. And as you're going through this, if you can strengthen yourself in times like this that are really, really hard on us, imagine how much stronger you're going to be when we get into whatever the after times look like, right? And it just is a way of knowing that, I keep that horse behind me. He's a real horse, but I, post my head injury, did a lot in post-traumatic stress, and I also did equine therapy. And the idea that in this moment, I am safe. In this moment, I am breathing. I am in my home office. There is nothing happening to me. I am safe. And really bringing it back to the present is a way that we can also work through any of the feelings of, sadness, fear, disappointment, anxiety as we go through what's, no doubt unprecedented time. So thank you. That's a great question.
Yeah, that's really an important message. Thank you for sharing. We do have a question from the audience, and I'm going to read it out loud. How do you react to the interviewer if they keep going after how each employment segment ended?
So, Diana, is that a question about they want to know, like, why you're not in that job anymore? I don't know if you're still there, if you can pop in so I can just understand a little bit of the context. So I'm going to assume that's what you mean by that, like as you transition from one job to the next, or if there's gaps in your resume. So here's what I would offer you. If you don't care, then it's going to shift the conversation. If you come from, yes, that was an experience and the experience ended, and you do some pre-work before you go into the interview and you think about what is it that you want to say. And if someone's like, oh, I noticed that there's a gap in your resume for 6 months. What were you doing during that time? Yeah, you know what? My assignment came to an end. So it was really a great time because I used it to continue to keep my skills sharp. I did online digital training. I went to LinkedIn and I took these free courses on LinkedIn, and it really kept my networking and strengthening my knowledge during that time. Like, when you don't make it a big deal, come at me, man, bring it at me. They all of a sudden the energy changes. So if someone's coming at you, like really poking around at it, I would also question if that's the kind of person or environment you want to be with. I get it. We need to work, but I would also wonder if that's the environment that would work for you. But you switching the energy and you coming from a place of, there are gaps in resumes. Maybe you were caring for an aging parent. Maybe you were moving house and you need to take time off. Maybe your company folded or there were layoffs. So what? But you have to change the dialogue for yourself. And then when you go into that interview, one, I bet you when you change the dialogue, they're not even going to ask you. Two, if they do ask you, you're going to answer from a place of grace and excellence, or they're going to be like, huh, okay, that woman knows how to come back. Got it.
Amazing. Thank you.
The question was about
I
how the termination happened. That's what the follow-up question. Um, so again, I don't know that that's any of their business. I think the termination is more than, um, revenue and profits were down and the company had to make some tough choices. Full stop.
I think this is a really great example of a conversation that could continue. And that leaves me with my final point that I just want to encourage everyone to reach out to Jill, to go to her website. This recording will be available, so you can watch this again. Should be up on our platform in the next hour or so. And I want to thank you, Jill, again for being with us today. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thanks for being here with us.